Have you noticed there's a large change? America is depleting faster than it ever has before. We have all of these breaking news stories, but the thing about the age of the internet is that it's not just Americans who are seeing it. It's people across the world on news channels like First Post, on African news channels, on South African news channels, and Indian and Chinese news channels. Everybody is witnessing the decline and decimation of America. And in this video, we need to talk about it so you know what steps to take and you know how to provide provision for your legacy and the generations that are coming after you. Welcome back to the channel. We're Journey With Us, a digital nomad family traveling Southeastern Africa, currently living in Mauritius, have lived in Tanzania for some time, but we are enjoying the African island life. This video is it's interesting because we have a lot of things that have been going on with the timeline. I want us to go back to when Kamala was the vice president and Biden was kind of not pushed out, but taken down a bit, and she was in the functioning presidential office to some degree. At that rate, a lot of Republicans, a lot of white Americans were looking at what was going on, and they're like, you know, the system has been hijacked, America's been hijacked, we have to get it back, we have to get it back. And I think the irony is, and by the way, I'm not affiliated with any political party, but I think the irony of the situation is that now it has actually been hijacked in a way. Like, we're actually seeing that you have Elon Musk in office, you have Doge doing all these changes, all of these implementations in the government, cutting back, changing USA, changing the way that Africa and other continents receive aid from America, which by the way is a good thing, but also changing jobs. Like 200,000 federal employees were laid off, and they're continuing these cutoffs and these layoffs. They're pushing people outside of owning property, outside of having land, and going into condominiums and apartments. I was watching a documentary earlier by the Yarbos. You should subscribe to their channel, another Black entrepreneur traveling family that travels throughout the world. But their documentary was about the decline of America and how it resembles the decline of Rome. And on this channel, we've been saying, you know, start to look at ancient Greece, start to look at ancient Egypt, start to look at ancient Rome, and see what the patterns were before these greatest empires on the earth collapsed. Because the reality is, everything has an expiration date. Everything in life has an expiration season. Seasons don't stay forever. Empires don't stay forever. And what we're witnessing is the total decimation and destruction of the American society. And as we're witnessing it, it's so interesting how just this past week, last week, Zelensky and Trump were in the Oval Office and they're debating on international television. Whether you think it's a ploy or not, the fact of the matter is, this is the screenshot, this is the projection that nations across the earth are viewing of America. Okay, nations across the world are in awe right now. People all over the world are watching all of these things happen to what was always called the greatest place on earth. Now, Trump last week as well said that he's doing away with the green cards. He's not issuing any waivers for African immigrants and Latin American immigrants who are already in the country. And on top of that, there's going to be a golden visa. Now, countries that are decimating in population like Portugal, Greece, other countries as well have these golden visas for citizenship. Okay, and America put the price, he hiked it up to $5 million US. $5 million US to acquire that citizenship, even though the empire is declining. And so some may see this and say, that's good, that's going to boost the economy, that's great. But these are the moves of desperation when the society is falling. And it just so happens that President Donald Trump is going to be the one in office as it continues to decline and decimate. Something that stuck out about that documentary I was telling you about earlier was how they showed the rich living lavishly, and how the rich in Rome at that time had started to seep into the government and to just own fancy villas and all of these things and just lavish themselves in diamonds and all of these things. Now, ancient Rome was an empire that spanned across northern Africa, parts of Egypt, parts of the Middle East. It was a very, very large empire, okay? Think back to when Trump was talking about how he wants to own Greenland, okay? But in ancient Rome, the people started to live in apartments that were very small, even if they were families, while the rich lived in their luxurious places. And we're seeing the same thing happen in America. The Black wealth gap is bigger than it has ever been. People think because there's more black millionaires that the wealth gap is closing, but it's not true, because the ownership is not staying in families and in communities. The ownership is leaving because of all of these redlining laws, all of these estate laws, and just ridiculous things that you do not encounter outside of America. And so we are witnessing the decline and the decimation of that Western society. On top of that, we did a live video yesterday. You should check out the live tab, check out the community post tab, check out the videos tab. Always look at the links in the descriptions to see what we have available for you to become an entrepreneur and leave America in record time, because that's what we did. We've been in Africa for 5 years, and I look back 5 years from now, or past, not 5 years from now, 5 years past. Obviously, it was March 2020. We were getting ready to travel abroad. We thought we were going to Ghana, okay? And it's been such an incredible, beautiful journey. We have advice and resources down below for you, because we've been able to do that because we're not relying on W-2 jobs. We're not relying on the system. We are entrepreneurs. We have always been entrepreneurial people, but the thing is, we were meant to be in community with other business owners. We weren't meant to sit on our laptops and try to talk to AI all day. 1, we should be praying to our Heavenly Father. 2, we should be getting in rooms, even if it's a virtual room, with business advisors who are ahead of you to some degree. It's better if they're a bit further ahead of you. When I like to invest, I invest with people that are much further ahead of me so that I can submit to their rulership and their guidance in a particular area. Now, my expertise is in copywriting, marketing strategy as well. But if I'm submitting to someone that is ahead of me in a specific marketing department, say for instance, video marketing, then me as a copywriter, as a writer, a marketing strategist, I'm willing to submit to them and understand so that I can reap the benefits of that submission and of that obedience, okay? Check out the links in the description. But this empire, this American empire, the US passport has been declining. And on top of that, to top it all off, today is the day that Trump has actually put into effect, President Trump put into the effect the tariffs that are going to rip Mexico and Canada. I believe it's 25% for Mexico and 20% for Canada. Stock market's down. Everything is down, because what Americans don't understand, if you don't know economics, if you're not an entrepreneur, get into it, learn and understand these things. When you put tariffs on these nations that are the closest to America, the closest allies, north border, south border, the closest allies that can send you food, can send you whatever you need. I know Canada helped out with the California wildfires and sent people right away, even when he had announced the tariffs. But when you have that happening, what it may look like, oh, it's going to impact Canada and Mexico, but it impacts the cost of goods in America. It impacts the cost of goods. And so the things that you would buy that would be at regular rates aren't going to be at regular rates anymore, i.e. oranges and avocado that come from Mexico. America's going to have to start supplying her own food, but we all know it's very difficult for America to do that. She hasn't been able to do that since the 1940s. And so we're going into a timeline where all of these factors, these ingredients, these chemicals, if you will, think about a chemistry class. Like if you're in chemistry class and your professor tells you don't mix X, Y, and Z because it's going to explode, this is that. When you're mixing all of these ingredients happening together, and it's going to explode with the decimation of America, and the world is watching. The wool has been pulled off of the continent's eyes, off of the people's eyes in Asia and Russia and all over the place. The wool has been pulled off of people's eyes, and they see. They're no longer saying, how can I get to America? Now they're saying, how can I build back home? Now they're saying, how can we bring back the African Americans back home to the continent? It's so different than what we heard just 5 years ago. And so I want you to think about these things. I want you to pray. I want you to meditate. I want you to understand what these things mean and discern what it is that you are called to do in these times. Because what we are witnessing is the fall of an empire. Empires fall on average after 250 years, and America is right at that mark. But the question is, will you fall with her, or will you rise in a different continent? We prefer the continent of Africa, but go where you're called. Go where you feel chosen. I know my family spent a great deal of time, my father did, in the Philippines growing up. Go where you're called, go where you're chosen. Travel, explore the world. America is not the end-all be-all, As you can see, I'm in Africa and it's gorgeous. It's not scary. It's all right. Everything is good outside of America. The only nation on earth that's going through all of this havoc, aside from also the UK and Germany, is America. And you have to ask yourself, why is this happening? And what am I going to do about it? Shalom, shalom.